What if an ordinary copper coin, resting forgotten at the bottom of an old jar or tucked away in an inherited collection, holds a story that most people completely overlook? Today, we are taking a closer look at two specific issues from the mid-20th century, the 1950D and 1951D Lincoln wheat pennies. At first glance, these deeply aged chocolate brown coins appear to be nothing more than heavily circulated pocket change from a bygone era. Yet, for experienced numismatists, they represent a fascinating intersection of American post-war history, high-volume minting, and the relentless search for elusive, high-grade survivors. As we examine these two consecutive Denver Mint issues, you will discover why certain authenticated examples capture extraordinary attention, how the realities of circulation transform their appearance, and why a select few pieces have achieved staggering results at auction. We will explore the critical differences between common, worn survivors and absolute condition rarities, revealing the specific details that separate everyday discoveries from genuine numismatic treasures. The 1950D Lincoln wheat penny, a post-war workhorse. To truly understand the 1950D Lincoln wheat cent, one must first look at the American landscape during the year it was struck. The United States in 1950 was a nation undergoing immense transition. The post-World War II economic boom was in full swing, suburban neighborhoods were expanding rapidly, and the manufacturing sector was operating at incredible capacity. However, it was also the dawn of the Korean War, a period marked by renewed global tension and a sudden shift in industrial priorities. Through this era of rapid change, the Denver Mint was tasked with producing an enormous volume of 1-cent pieces to fuel everyday commerce. The 1950s D cent features the iconic design created by Victor David Brenner, which first debuted in 1909. The obverse bears the solemn, dignified profile of Abraham Lincoln, surrounded by the words, "In God We Trust," the word liberty, and the date. But it is the reverse that gives this coin its legendary moniker. Two curved, stylized stalks of durum wheat flanking the words 1 cent and United States of America. When examining a typical 1950D wheat penny pulled from a long-forgotten hoard, you are immediately confronted with the reality of circulation. These coins rarely display the brilliant, flawless copper surfaces of newly minted money. Instead, they carry the physical textures of heavy use. You will typically see deep, oxidized mahogany and dark brown coloration, worn and flattened wheat lines on the reverse, and softened details in Lincoln's hair and cheekbone. The copper has aged naturally, bearing countless microscopic contact marks, tiny rim dings, and the smoothed-over patina that only comes from decades of passing through cash registers, pockets, and hands. During 1950, the Denver Mint, identified by the small D mint mark resting cleanly beneath the date, produced over 334 million of these cents. They were struck on planchets composed of 95% copper and 5% tin and zinc, weighing exactly 3.11 grams with a diameter of 19.05 millimeters. Because the mintage was so vast, the 1950D is not a fundamentally rare coin in absolute terms. The vast majority of surviving examples are worth only a few cents, serving as affordable, tangible pieces of history for beginning collectors. However, the immense mintage is precisely what makes elite, authenticated examples so highly prized. Finding a 1950D that somehow escaped the ravages of circulation is an extraordinarily difficult task. Professional grading services evaluate these coins using the internationally recognized Sheldon scale, but they also assign a critical color designation: brown, BN, red-brown, RB, or red, RD. For a coin to achieve a full red designation, it must retain nearly all of its original mint luster and blazing copper color, free from the dark oxidation that characterizes typical circulated finds. Registries set collectors aggressively pursue these flawless survivors. A certified 1950D graded mint state 67 red, MS 67 RD, is a profound rarity. In this condition, the strike must be needle sharp, with every line in the wheat stalks fully separated and Lincoln's portrait displaying crisp, uninterrupted detail. Such pristine, authenticated examples have realized prices exceeding $4,000 at major numismatic auctions. These headline-making figures do not apply to the dark, worn coins found in everyday jars, but rather to microscopic fractions of the surviving population that have been preserved in perfect environmental conditions for over 70 years. Beyond pristine condition, specialized collectors scrutinize the 1950 for genuine mint errors in die varieties. The most famous anomaly for this specific date in mint is the repunched mint mark, commonly abbreviated as RPM. During this era, mint marks were still punched into the working dies by hand using a mallet and a steel punch. If the initial strike was too light or slightly misaligned, the mint worker would strike the punch it again. On certain 1950 pennies, careful examination under high magnification reveals a secondary D overlapping or resting slightly offset from the primary mint mark. Authenticated RPMs for the 1950 carry distinct premiums, especially when the doubling is bold and the coin is in well-preserved condition. Other notable errors, such as off-center strikes or clipped planchets, also command strong attention when verified by reputable third-party grading organizations. The 1951 Lincoln Wheat Penny, Industrial Might, and Deployware. As the calendar turned to 1951, the United States was deeply entrenched in the Korean War effort. Industrial production was heavily regulated, and raw materials were subject to government rationing. Yet the demand for circulating currency never ceased. The Denver Mint operated at a blistering pace to keep up with commercial needs, striking a staggering 625 to 355,000 Lincoln Wheat Pennies that year. The technical specifications remained identical to the previous year. A robust 3.11-gram planchet consisting of the traditional 95% copper alloy, measuring 18.05 millimeters in diameter. But the incredible speed and volume of production in Denver during 1951 introduced a distinct set of characteristics that seasoned collectors look for today. Because the mint was pushing its equipment to the absolute limit, working dies were often kept in service far longer than they should have been. As a result, when you encounter a 1951 wheat penny, the visual presentation often tells a story of mechanical fatigue. Even on coins that show relatively little circulation wear, the original strike itself may appear soft or mushy. You might notice that the fine lines in the wheat stalks blend together, or that the lettering in God We Trust is thick and slightly distorted, pulled toward the rim of the coin by the exhausted steel of the die. Most 1951 pennies found today exhibit the heavy, dark circulation wear typical of mid-century copper. The surfaces are often a dull, flat brown, with the highest points of Lincoln's shoulder and the tips of the wheat ears completely worn away. They carry a distinct, aged character, a testament to millions of transactions. For the average circulated 1951 the market value remains nominal, holding primarily sentimental and historical worth. Yet, just as with the 1950 the massive mintage of 1951 created an inverse rarity when it comes to flawlessly preserved examples. Locating a 1951 with a razor-sharp strike, devoid of die wear, and boasting blazing original red luster is an immense numismatic challenge. Elite registry competitors understand that finding a top-tier specimen from 1951 is often more difficult than finding one from years with much lower mintages, simply because so many of the 1951 coins were poorly struck to begin with. When an impeccably struck, highly lustrous 1951 graded MS67 red or higher appears at auction, fierce bidding wars often ensue. Verified top population examples have shattered expectations, realizing upwards of 5,000 to 7,000, underscoring the massive chasm between a common pocket change find and an absolute condition rarity. The 1951 is also a rich hunting ground for variety and error specialists. The sheer volume of dies required to strike over 600 million coins virtually guaranteed human error. The 1951 features several prominent repunched mint marks, RPMs. One particularly sought-after variety is the D/D, where a distinct secondary mint mark is visible, often protruding significantly to the north, south, or west of the primary D. Additionally, because the dies were pushed to the point of failure, the 1951 D is famous for prominent die cracks. One of the most beloved minor varieties among wheat penny enthusiasts is the BIE error. This occurs when a small piece of the die breaks away between the letters B and E in the word liberty, resulting in a raised lump of copper that looks like a capital letter I. While minor die breaks and BIE errors rarely make collectors wealthy, they add a layer of forensic intrigue to the hobby, transforming the act of looking at a penny into a genuine historical investigation. Preservation, authentication, and avoiding alterations. As the values for exceptional condition, rarities, and major errors increase, so does the vital importance of authentication and careful preservation. The most devastating mistake an inexperienced collector can make is attempting to improve the appearance of an old, heavily circulated wheat penny. When an individual discovers a dark, worn 1950D or 1951D, the temptation to polish or clean it can be overwhelming. However, cleaning a copper coin permanently strips away its natural aged patina and inflicts microscopic scratches across the surface. Professional grading services will instantly flag a polished coin as cleaned or altered surfaces, stripping it of its numerical grade and destroying its premium collector value. The deep brown textured appearance of an old wheat penny is part of its authentic history. It should be celebrated, not erased. Similarly, collectors must be vigilant against altered coins. Because repunched mint marks and specific errors carry premiums, deceptive individuals occasionally attempt to fabricate these anomalies. A common tactic involves taking a standard, heavily circulated coin and using tools to carve a fake mint mark or simulate a die break. Furthermore, artificial toning is sometimes applied using heat or chemicals to mimic the iridescent colors occasionally found on original copper coins. This is why advanced numismatists place enormous trust in respected third-party grading organizations. Professional authentication guarantees that the coin's surfaces are original, the mint marks are genuine, and the numerical grade is accurate. For any 1950D or 1951D cent that appears to possess exceptional uncirculated luster or a dramatic distinct error, independent certification is the only reliable way to establish its true position in the numismatic marketplace. To ensure that high-quality survivors remain pristine for future generations, proper storage is paramount. Raw copper is highly reactive to environmental factors. Coins should never be handled on their faces. They must only be held by their edges to prevent the oils and acids in human skin from permanently etching fingerprints into the metal. Potentially valuable examples should be secured in inert, archival quality plastic holders or capsules and stored in a climate-controlled environment free from high humidity and extreme temperature fluctuations. Ultimately, the 1950D and 1951D Lincoln wheat pennies stand as far more than mere remnants of post-war commerce. They are physical documents of an America in transition, bearing the marks of a rapidly expanding economy and the heavy toll of high-speed industrial production. For the vast majority of people, they remain simple, nostalgic pocket change, heavily worn and darkened by time. But for those willing to look closer, to understand the nuances of the Sheldon grading scale, to recognize the signs of exhausted mint dies, and to hunt for that one-in-a-million flawless survivor, these common copper coins offer an endlessly captivating journey into the heart of numismatic study.